everybody. We are a quorum. It's 5 o'clock. And I'm calling the meeting to order. Also looking at the wrong packet. So that's,
Oh, so much.
there we go. So I'll call for a motion to approve this evening's agenda, the June 26th board meeting agenda.
I move to approve.
Second, second from John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I'd like to open the meeting for public discussion. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Can I actually invite you each just to introduce yourselves to the board?
Sure. Yeah, Corey Flagel Stevens, be joining the board as of next month. Work with the University of Iowa.
I'm Kelsey Patrick Furry, and I will also be joining us next month, and I work for Ruthless Legal, which is based in Minneapolis.
So are your future colleagues. Okay, I think we can move on to items to be discussed. The first policy review this year is, this month, excuse me, is 801, which is circulation and library card policy. There were no changes made, as I recall.
Yeah. Sam Helmick led the review committee and they decided they wanted to go forward with the policy as written.
That's rare.
Very rare for this policy. It's the first time in its lengthy history. But this is a policy that often comes up as needed. So if there are changes within the next 3 years, you'll see it, you might see it before it's 3 year.
This is our 7th review of this since we've been on the board, Tom.
Yeah, that is quite a lengthy revision list. Are there any comments or questions? Sometimes it's a good opportunity to learn more about our policies.
I have a bit to address. I don't, since they don't want to change this, I think, but this, your bylaws are made for, not for us, but for posterity, as it were. So they need to be really clear, I think. Because we don't know who's going to be reading them in 5 or 10 years. Or they may get used. Anyway, I think on that first page of this, number F, it's a bit misleading to say that the library has no restrictions on age, because it goes on to say there are restrictions on age with the student cards, student AIM cards. I don't know what AIM stands for.
I forgot.
Access to information.
Active.
Access to information and materials.
Okay. So those people can be restricted from, because they need to have the approval of their school or their institution. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
So there's 2 types of cards. We have our normal library cards that are not restricted by age, except for in this specific equipment value over 250, and that's based on state law, what parents or
Right.
caregivers are responsible for. And then we have a separate category, which is that AIM card, which we call out in the next page, was 801.9, 801.19. And those are issued sort of through the school district. Parents opt in at the time of registration if they want to include an AIM card. Some students have both. They'll have a regular card that's not restricted, and then they'll have their AIM card, which is restricted based on the memorandum of understanding with the school district.
I would just say that it would be better if it said with these following exceptions. One is borrowing things that are $250 or more, is that right? And 2, students carrying the AIM card, because they are clearly being told, or they could be being told, we don't even know that, by their school or somebody, that they can't use them.
Okay.
What is the
certain
limitation to? What kind of limitations exist in the memorandum of understanding?
They are able to access 3 print materials at any given time. They do not have to pay, if there's a loss to those materials, they're not, students are not liable for it. The library takes the loss on that. And then they are also have access to our some of our digital materials. And the access to the digital materials is actually based on contracts.
Right.
So sometimes the school district contracts out for specific digital item, like digital databases. They won't have access to those because the school district provides them. But they do have access to Libby, which is our ebooks and audiobooks materials through Overdrive and Canopy.
Without any exceptions. Oh,
Exactly.
okay, then
It's
I,
not content based, it's,
beg pardon?
there are no content based
Right.
restriction.
Right now.
restrictions.
And yes,
Well, then maybe that's a moot point then. That wasn't clear to me in reading this.
Yeah, and it is obscure because refers to the memorandum of agreement, which
But as those terms change in the MOU, do we really want to be that specific and have to update our bylaws every time the terms change in an MOU?
Sorry, I
You
didn't
know,
get,
I mean, do we really want to be that specific? Because then we'll have to change these policies every time the MOU is adjusted. And if I understand correctly, we're not the ones that bring the limitations. The limitations are put by the school system.
right,
So there, you know, our policy is that they can borrow things. The school system says in the MOU, there's
Right.
limits.
right.
So I'm not sure if we.
But
want
we're
to be
the
that just-
enforcer of that, so,
Well.
it's not a big point,
Are we the
but
enforcer?
I just think we should be clear and.
Yeah.
We are the enforcer of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just thinking it's changed over time too, depending on when the state said there are certain materials that should not be in the hands of minors.
but they can still get them here. And does an AA?
Through their regular card they could. Through
Is
their.
that true? If I'm
People,
using
now
AI.
they can, I think, but at the time when it was being discussed, I thought that was one of the reasons. There were some limitations too. There was the financial liability, but there was also some limitations on. Information. You're more of an expert on this.
yeah, they can check out anything in the library as long as it's a print format.
Okay, they can now, but when the original AIM card was being. Reviewed by the state, when we said when the state was saying there's some materials that may not be appropriate for minors to have access to, wasn't the AIM card one of the points of contention there?
It was a point of contention, but nothing changed.
Okay.
So the school district says it's opt-in, so it is opt-in. The parents
Okay,
have to
so-
click a box.
So materials they couldn't have gotten at the schools, they could have gotten here with the AIM card without limit.
Mhm.
these are several
Without
school
limit.
districts though, right?
It's just the Iowa City School District, but they can do it at several.
I mean, the AIM cards are issued or authorized by several school districts.
There's not here at the Iowa City Public Library, but there's certain versions outside of our jurisdiction. So
No.
it's
Even,
Cedar Rapids has a program with their school district as well.
uh-huh,
We're
But,
really just, we're
yeah.
really just with Iowa City.
Yeah,
School
we're just with the
District.
Iowa City School District at this time.
okay,
And this is their memorandum of understanding is between just as with us, but it's also with North Liberty and Coralville. Our circulation policy
Hmm.
for that specific card is the same with North Liberty.
I think we should leave it how it's worded, because then if the MOU changes, we don't have to change this policy.
Right, other discussion on 801, policy 801.
I've got some more. I don't know whether you want to hear it, but, some things I just don't know. What is at-home service?
Yeah, at-home service is a service that if people are if patrons are unable to come to the library or the bookmobile for a variety of reasons, they can sign up for the service and we will mail materials to them.
Okay,
And it comes with postage that they can mail the materials back.
okay. And what about, at-home cards? No, I can't read my own writing. What? And what's a staff registration card? There's some language here in this. That I,
What, plain language?
yeah,
You think?
I mean, there are bylaws, but they ought to be able to be understood by the trustees. I mean, even if the staff understands them, we ought to be super careful to make sure that they are clear to other people as well.
Are you asking about self-registration cards?
Yeah,
So self-registration, patrons might be at home, they will register for a card, a temporary card, and they can access overdrive, they can place books on hold. They can, some of our digital collections for a temporary period until they come and provide proof of address and a
I
photo
see,
ID.
okay.
Yeah, so it's to be able to provide materials or be able to get the, at least the digital materials if they're at home and they can't make it in.
Okay. One of the later provisions comes on page 7, refers to the 3 library locations. And I only could count 2.
Where?
It's on page 7.
But what point is it?
I
Oh,
just,
under AIM cards, the student AIM card will have limited borrowing privileges of physical materials at each of the 3 public library locations. It means Coralville, North Liberty, and us. And
okay,
it's language taken from
Okay.
the memorandum of understanding with
Okay,
the school district.
okay.
So maybe.
Other questions or comments on 801?
can I do one more and then I'll shut up?
No, I mean, yes, you can do more, but you don't have to feel it.
Yeah. There's a term that's used this is on page 6. In the at-home service and the at-home cards. That refers to a service model, ending with, quote, landscape analysis of community health. I had no idea what that that phrase meant. Do you find it?
Oh.
Number it.
It's on page 6.
It's in 80117.
Yeah, 80117, thank you.
Oh, I think that's we were self-registered cards permit limited access to online resources and the physical collection as applicable to the service model in place at the library and the landscape analysis of community health. I think that's language we added during COVID.
During COVID.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Well, landscape analysis is a misleading phrase then. I mean, you could just say, according to
Community health.
protocols of community health, something like that. Well.
Is it limited only to health? Is it only health? I mean, is it just emergencies in the community or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea what that phrase meant. It seemed to me, frankly, the kind of language that some of our colleagues in the social sciences use. And I had no idea what it meant.
That's an academic term.
Somebody tell me what a landscape of community health is.
I'm working on a
Man, I
landscape
don't-
analysis, right?
I mean, I don't think the phrase adds anything. It's gonna be the service model of the library.
Right.
Yeah.
Would trustees agree to just taking that phrase out before we approve it? Any other questions or comments on 801?
I'm done. I'm more than done.
For 801.
Yeah.
I think I was just loaded for bear or for some reason I started to read that.
Then I would entertain a motion to adopt 801 as presented with the minor edit of the removal of the landscape analysis phrase in 80117.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Right, we had an abstention.
It's a commonly used phrase for you, huh?
He just needed his name on that vote.
Which brings us to a review of 806, the meeting room and lobby use, and I believe unprecedented in my term. This one is also suggested to just remain the same. We've never in my term, my service had two that didn't need any spiffing up.
I guess Sam just did such a good job 3 years ago.
Yeah, congratulations, Sam. Any questions about the policy and opportunity to learn more about the actual functioning of the library?
We did an extensive revision in 2021. But it was reviewed again after that extensive revision and a year after that. 2022 was.
Yeah, I remember that was a big one.
Don't see any comments or questions, so I would entertain a motion to approve policy 806 as presented.
So moved.
Seconded, moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Can I suggest one just textual change? And this is the very last thing, 80617, that lets the library director or designatee who's authorized to adopt rules to implement this this policy. And I would just suggest that to change rules to means, to adopt means to implement the policy rather than rules.
It's 80617.
Yeah. It's in the middle of that second.
Right.
It's a small thing, but it makes the library director sound like a principal of a grammar school. And this one doesn't fit.
That's like that sometimes.
Is there any objection to changing rules to means? Then by acclamation, it is so adopted.
So you guys revised both
We
policies.
did. Yeah. Teach you all to bring an unrevised policy. Okay. The next item is to consider the NOBU budget, which is the non-operating budget. And as I finally understand, we use the non-operating budget for operating expenses. It's the non-city budget. It's the money that didn't come from the city. And we have a great deal of discretion over how that money is used. So, Ann, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, so now that the operating budget is set for FY 26 by the city, we're gonna look at the non-operating funds and set funding priorities with this particular, for this particular year. It's a pretty large request, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, we have to cover our CIP obligations for the carpet replacement. And then the other is that we have to pay for the second half of the building consultant. We paid the first half in FY 25. FY 26, we have to pay the remainder. So I'm asking to look into tapping two of our reserve funds. One is the balance of the Enrich Iowa COVID money. Usually our Enrich Iowa funding, we have the obligation of using it the year it's provided. During 2020 and 2021, the state removed that obligation, so we didn't need it, we didn't spend it. And then we have this outlying account called the interest account. That prior to 2018, that's the money that was the interest accrued on the gifts and bequests fund. The gifts and bequests received from the Friends Foundation. We were putting the interest in that account. We're keeping the interest with the gifts and bequests account since 2018, and this is money that just has been sitting there and unused. And it's been meant to close out that account since 2018.
Questions or comments?
I do have a question after I've been thinking about this. I knew this was coming for a week, but when we use the accounts that we've been holding, like a COVID account, what do we have in case of a facility emergency?
We have quite a,
Will we be okay? I mean, I just don't wanna make sure we're gonna having those little pieces of money help us when we have sewage backups or bed bugs or. And I wanna make sure that we still.
Yeah, we still
Are
would
in a
be
secure
in,
place.
yes, and there's
Rainy
quite,
day.
quite a bit in the gifts of the Quest account.
I just wanna make sure we're good for things that we don't anticipate. Like air conditioning unit breakdown.
Right. Yes, we'd be able to cover those things for sure. And there'll be an update to all of those accounts, I believe in August. September.
I don't mean to be the doom and gloom, I just have seen
No,
how
I know
expensive that
it.
gets.
Risk averse is the word I use.
This is not a question about this use, but how is the Prince Foundation gift amount calculated?
They have a memorandum of understanding that they provide each year. It's usually very similar to their obligations. They are, and I think 2.5%, they're gonna try to increase each year going forward for the next 5 years. So you'll see that memorandum of understanding next month.
Thank you.
I think, we're spending down some money that won't get refilled, but we're spending it on one-time expenses, so I'm kind of comfortable with that.
And I was hoping because they're for the future of the library, that building consultant are working on the carpet, which is in desperate need of replacement. There'll be investment, there can be seen as investments.
I move to adopt the Nobu budget.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the Nobu budget as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Which brings us to the interim director's report. And do you have anything to add or amplify from your written report?
Yeah, I do have a few things to add, but I'll start with just the discussion of administrative policies. We've been, as part of the interim, we're looking a little bit like cleaning up some of the things that are outstanding, and one of them is some administrative policy reviews. They're not board policies, but they're things that we use as procedures, especially for finance. And then finance has come up a couple times when we wanted to make some purchases, and so we're a couple versions behind the city's finance policy. And that seems like an easy update in the finance policy that you have, or the purchasing policy. The finance policy that you have says that we adopt the current purchasing policy, so we're going to work through that. But there's other city policies that they have that are administrative that we have not adopted, or we do something entirely different, or we use a little bit of both. And while we're going through those, I wanted to get there's some good reason for that. We want to maintain board autonomy. We want to make sure some systems are our own, especially computer systems. But I wanted to just get your feedback on, when we're working through them, what types of guidelines or philosophy that you have when we're having those discussions with the city. And so I outlined a few, making sure that your autonomy is protected, protecting our patrons' rights to access materials and library services, but also following best practices set forth by the experts at the city. And being able to receive pertinent advice from them. It's very difficult when we have differences in policy, when we call them and they have to review the differences. And just making sure that we're saving staff time as well by not recreating the wheel.
And I might just add a little bit, at various points as board president, I've had to consult with HR and with legal. Particularly with HR, the answer commonly is you can do whatever you want, which is a really unhelpful answer. I think it would be very helpful to have, where it makes sense, to have policies in place so that Anne can say, or the director can say, my board wants me to follow your policies. Can you advise me on how to do that? And it would just be a lot easier.
So do we always? I wanna make sure, there's times we're not going to.
Right,
necessarily seek
right,
advice,
right.
yeah.
I mean, I think the first principle that Anne put out there was protecting board autonomy. But there are times when there are a lot of policies, we don't need a separate, I'm guessing, purchasing policy that, we would do things differently.
Well, I'm not sure, because actually we do need to put it through a different approval channel within the library than in the city. So the purchasing one came up this month when we were looking at signing a contract. And our ceilings were different. I mean, we were frozen because of it. So like, I think there's benefits, but I'm cautious to say we would use the city's policy as a whole.
Somebody's
For example, for salary setting, if we were to even use that with the city's structure for doing that is different than ours is. And we have greater autonomy. Do we want to tie our hands by saying we would about cities advice on them?
Yeah, and I think it's policy by policy. We just have to look at it.
So I think for the purchasing policy, we have some language that we would put. At the beginning of the purchasing policy, it discusses the chain of who the approval
There's
process.
the chain that.
So when we look at the purchasing policy, we'll change city council to board of trustees. And we'll change city manager to library director.
Yes.
So when we talk about like financial policy, like what are we talking about there though? Because that's very broad.
So you have a finance policy that talks about the different funds, the authority that you have over the budget. Purchasing policy gets into when do you do an RFP or request for proposal? When do you just ask for quotes? Who has the authority at certain dollar amounts? When does it go to the board to decide? And so we would follow, what we
Yes.
would like to do is follow what the city council does with the city manager.
Yeah, because every policy more or less in the city is gonna go through the city attorney, so.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty confident when it comes to their policies matching up. Us matching up, with some exceptions, of course, with our autonomy. HR practices, I would say we want to mirror what the city does. Just because employment law changes and they're more up to speed. And our city attorney, as we know, is pretty good with those types of policies.
I'd say
Does that.
mirror or parallel, because I think there's an importance that the library director not be under a political structure.
Right.
Well, that,
Right.
yes.
Yeah. But I like the way you explained it, Ann, that we would substitute library director for city manager where appropriate. So it would be a parallel policy with just.
So tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
Does that give you some guidance, Ann?
yeah, thank you.
I do have a question. The second bullet in your list of considerations seems to be in a slightly different category in my mind. The others I can see absolutely as administrative, this is the way we're gonna administer our services. Talk a little bit about what you're thinking in that second bullet.
I'm thinking mostly about our IT infrastructure. So we have a very
Got it.
separate IT infrastructure from the
Got it.
city. Our computer systems, the public computer systems are under our guys. If we had city IT and we're the same department as the police, under the same umbrella as the police, we were thinking of.
That
just
makes sense.
making separations.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of updates. The downtown block party is this weekend. Normally, we stay open a little later, just due to staffing. We've decided to close at our normal time on Saturday. So at 6 p.m. we'll close the lobby. Obviously, we'll be open for 6 if anybody needs to recover from the heat.
Will the facility staff have the bathrooms closed? So there'll be no access to restaurant.
And this, I also wanted to mention that there's been some changes to the State Historical Library in Iowa City. They will be closing the facility, well, they're going appointment only starting July 9th. And then I am anticipating a full closure of that facility. All of the collections are moving to Des Moines. Des Moines has done an extensive renovation and they're going to be able to incorporate the items that are in the State Historical Library. But I did want to mention that that library not in that specific building, but that library has been open to the public in Iowa City even before there has been an Iowa City Public Library. And that we refer patrons quite a bit to that facility for genealogical research or local histories research, has a rich collection of Iowa City and Johnson County history. And it will be a huge loss.
And I was wondering when I saw that whether there was any of the local history that could be moved here, or there were any discussions about that?
No, we have not had any discussions with the State Historical Library, but we can ask them for a response about what they're gonna be doing with collection items.
Right,
We have not developed a local history collection in this institution because we had that facility.
What about other libraries, like Henry County Library or wherever, Mount Pleasant? Like, do they, do individual libraries, you think, carry local history? We're
Quite a
just
few.
unique because we have had the state historical library.
Quite a few libraries do have local history rooms and they maintain local history collections.
I just think that'd be desirable.
Or does it belong under the County Historical Society?
Well, I could go there too if they'd be willing to take it, I guess.
Because they might be more skilled at preservation of some of this material.
Yeah, our
We don't have the
staffing,
environment for that.
yeah, building or staffing, the collection policy has not been set up with the idea of maintaining that type of collection, but
it's really a whole new service.
Yeah,
So to address them.
but I think the concern is too, that there's a human cost to it, human labor cost, that they're losing their staff. Could we really afford that task?
Right, it's hard to imagine how we could.
Yeah.
What we would give up in order to do that.
and we had new board member orientation today. So, 3 members were oriented.
And they didn't run away.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't quit.
And lastly, Sam Helmick will be inaugurated as ALA president on Monday. And there will be an event here on Wednesday, July 23rd, just a community event that the ALA is putting on as a. So we'll send you more information about that.
Anything else for Ann? Brings us to the Children's Services Department report, which he's not here, but I'm sure if there are questions, we can get some answers.
Whoever's idea it was to bring Lucha Libre deserves.
That's what on.
That's on my calendar.
Not already happened.
Yeah,
We had 300 kids in the meeting room at 10:30 for the reptile program, and then another 125 for the 1 PM showing.
right.
It's a great place to be on a hot day especially.
Right.
Yeah. The next report is from Collection Services Department. Thank you to Paul.
Who's taking Paul's place on the bookmobile?
We haven't hired yet.
Okay,
Yeah, that job.
that's the one discussed, yeah.
That job closes on Monday. It's our second posting for the position.
Yeah, he did an interesting portfolio of work.
Yes.
And our next report is from Information Technology Report. I read with interest about the tabletop exercise incident. Good thing to do. Any questions on that report?
When we're here, I'd offer to help. That's exactly what I do for work.
No. And then we've got the development report. I was excited to hear that Bright Future 2026 is rescheduled. Day before my birthday, so I think it'll be my birthday party. That was a great event this year.
Was I sleeping on the book sale, having vinyl at it? Because that's awesome.
You're getting a lot of donations.
That's,
It's, you know,
that's awesome. Have we considered, having or re-adding vinyl to our collection anyway? Or is that?
we talk about it every once in a while, but I think, yeah, we would have to think about how you maintain that collection because it does wear.
That's where.
Yeah, it does wear.
I think people who play vinyl want to collect it.
That's true.
Yeah,
Some of them are
people
cheap.
just access music, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the hot day like today, you can't even
No.
also.
Oh, the book drops at staff, yeah.
Oh,
I
didn't even think of that.
Everything would be melted together.
We'll need our emergency funds to replace.
Great idea, DJ. That's the great thing of it. A board
Was it?
made up of citizens from the community comes up with all kinds of ideas. It's great. For my president's report, I did want to comment on, back in April, we talked a little bit about bylaws. Our bylaws have references to committees meeting. When those bylaws were written, the understanding was that a committee was not a public body that needed to hold open meetings. That understanding has changed. So that's got to get fixed somehow. But right now, when we're transitioning, board doesn't seem like exactly the time to do a bylaws review. And there's nothing in the bylaws until, I don't remember, January or February, that says that the president shall appoint a committee. So we've got some time during which the bylaws won't force us to do anything. So I would commend that as something for the board to take up in the fall sometime, work through. Yeah, it's not hard, actually. I think it's pretty straightforward set of revisions. I was pleased to be part of the orientation of the new board members. Today it was, Ann did a great job of covering stuff, almost all of which I understood or knew, but not quite after 6 years. And you're going to have 3 great new colleagues to work with. So I'll just end my report by expressing, my appreciation for the opportunity to serve as president of this group and to serve on the board in general. I have learned a lot. I've met members of my community I wouldn't have met before, and probably have a new concept of what libraries are, even after a whole life of being a big time library user. So we have a little new format for announcement from members. Are there any members that want to provide a foundation update? Nothing really. Or an advocacy update. Are there any members that want to provide any other announcements?
Just heartfelt thanks. Really proud of the work that I've been a part of in the last 6 years, and just being able to be in this room with so many strong people and so many inspirational people has really changed my perspective on the library for the better. Not that I came in with a negative perspective, but it's just, it's remarkable the work that's done here, and it's been very humbling to be a part of something so significant. Thank you.
And we need to say thank you to all of you. Thank you so much. For years of work. Years of service.
I'd be interested to see how many classes began and ended intact.
We're the first one since we've been on the board.
Yeah, we're the first one since we've been on the board for sure. Because life happens over 6 years. People, people have changes in their lives.
6 years is a long term.
I guess that proves that nothing happens in our lives. All right, I don't know if there are any comments on the communications that were provided in the packet. Questions? We can move on to the consent agenda. And I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Nicely done, you two.
The tradition of those two.
And then we can just quickly look at the agenda for our next meeting. That will include your next meeting. That will include the trustees corporate meeting as the corporate members of the Friends Foundation. A strategic planning update. Board of Trustees annual report. I assume that's start work on that. And the memorandum of agreement between the foundation and the library, and then adult services and community access services will provide their departmental reports.
I actually think that board of trustees annual report might need to be moved for a month simply because we usually spend 1 month soliciting information from the board on what they'd like in their report. And the second month is actually put together and we didn't solicit this month.
We can provide a draft too.
Usually there's a draft and then we ask the board members what they'd like to see included, or else we could have that discussion now for a moment, but it's not on the agenda.
Right, yeah.
Just what the highlights were.
We could put it on both months, the draft.
Yeah, I was about
Yeah.
4 months, so it's reviewed, right? I
Yeah.
just think it usually took us 2 rounds.
Two
Yeah.
months to, yeah. I agree. Anything else? Then we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.